So thank you for joining me this morning for our next edition of MARC from Scratch. Today we are looking at a DVD, which I'm excited about. My name is Britta Dorsey. I am the Development Support Administrator for Evergreen, Indiana. My contact information is right here on the screen. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this edition or this webinar, future webinars, or anything Evergreen Indiana related. I saw someone's hand go up. Do you have a question or was that by accident? I think it looks like it's down, so I'm going to keep going. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put them in the chat as we go. I will try to answer them when I see them. The agenda today, we are going to first look at the MARC templates that are available to us in Evergreen, Indiana. This is what helps, this gives us a great foundation when we do have to catalog something from scratch. And then we are going to catalog a DVD. These are the resources that I used for today's webinar. We have, of course, the Cataloging Procedures Guide for Evergreen, Indiana, the OCLC Bibliographic Formats and Standards website, along with the Library of Congress MARC 21 format. I also wanted to link you to the Cataloging Interest Group playlist on the YouTube training page. I try to upload all of the interest groups and cataloging related webinars so you can review them and watch them again in the future if you wanted to. I also wanted to link to IMDb or Internet Movie Database along with AFI catalog, which I actually found extremely helpful because they were useful for me for today's for this session. And then I also wanted to link you to the OLOX best practices. I also used this for today and the RDA relator terms. So before we really go into it, I want to just a little reminder of the difference between what you will see in when we enter information in the enhanced MARC editor and the flat text editor. When we talk about undefined indicators in the enhanced MARC editor, that means we are leaving these blank. This is the first indicator, this is the second, so they will remain blank if they are undefined. And then when we see delimiters, they are represented by a double dagger, which is not something that we have to input because it is automatically placed when we create a new subfield. The flat text editor, undefined indicators are represented by 2 backward slashes, 1 for each indicator. And then the delimiters in the flat text editor are represented by a $, which we do have to enter in order to create a new subfield. These subfield samples in this webinar are written in flat text format. And then when we talk about each of the tags that we use in this record, not all of the indicators and subfield codes are listed for each tag. I tried to give you some what is available, but also focus more on what we are using for those particular fields for today. So first, let's pull up a MARC template because that's, well, the whole point of today, what we're using. We use the MARC templates again to help us create records from scratch. We access them from the cataloging menu, and then we click on Create New MARC Record. We are taken to the Select Your Template page. This dropdown allows us to select from a very large list of different templates available to you. You want to select the template that best matches your item in hand. If you don't see a template for your item, just select the one that matches the closest to your item and then adjust it. I have heard people, I know we've been asked about a vinyl record template. I have heard catalogers use I believe the music CD template and then adjust that for the vinyl records. Once you select the template, you will click load, and that will take you to the actual MARC editor. And today we are using the video DVD template. So in this video disc template, we have the most commonly used MARC tags already listed. There's some pre-entered punctuation to help you get started, and subfields for certain tags have been supplied based on their frequent use. You can also see the 3, 3, 6, 7, and 8s are already filled in, so we are going to skip over those today. You do have the option to use the enhanced MARC editor or the flat text editor. And of course, this example is from the enhanced MARC editor. It's whatever works best for you and your workflow. Now, because of time, we aren't going to actually write in the MARC, but I do have examples of what they will look like for both. And you might not, and you'll likely not use all of the tags that are in the template, which is perfectly fine. This is just a great way to get you started. All right, today's cataloging subject is the DVD for Clue. It was released in theaters in 1985 and released on DVD in 2000. I've also linked us to the current bibliographic record in the production server for this title. And it will look a little different than what I am building today, just a heads up. And I think more people have joined us, so I'm adding a link to the slide deck PDF in the chat. Okay, so we're looking at the front cover of the item itself. What we can glean from it is the title of the item as well as an edition statement or part of an edition statement. The spine gives us a little more information. We have the title, we have the publisher or distributor number, we have a little information about accessibility with that closed captioning icon, and then we have information about the producer or distributor. The back cover usually gives us a lot more information, which includes standard identifiers like the ISBN and UPC. It will give us, with DVDs or video recordings, it usually gives us some type of statement of responsibility, production information, physical fields, content notes, and added entries. The physical disc is the other thing that we look at or we get when we are creating a record for video discs. We get information like the title, production company, physical fields, content notes, and added entries. This is a list of tags that are required to create a core level bibliographic record. It's the equivalent of entering a 7 in the encoding level fixed field. We always want to strive for full level bibliographic records. However, if you don't have the time, you always want to at least do the minimum requirements, which is what this list is. I have included the link to the Library of Congress MARC 21 that lists the full and minimal requirements. If you'd like to take a look. Again, today we are focusing on this and then maybe a few more because of the nature of video recordings. Okay, so let's start. And we're just going straight down the line in MARC. We're not in the order. So the first one, our item has an ISBN, which is fairly common for older DVDs, maybe not so much nowadays, but you'll still see them on them. So the 020 field is used for the ISBN. It is a unique number assigned to an item by the publisher. You will see 10 or 13-digit ISBNs, though older publications may only have a 10-digit one, while newer may have both or just the 13-digit. The indicators for the 020 are undefined. Remember, we will leave those blank or use backward slashes to indicate undefined indicators. And then the subfields, we use a subfield A for where we actually place the number and a subfield Q for qualifying information if need be. So to transcribe it, we enter the ISBN as it appears on the item in hand if it is present, excluding any spaces or dashes within the subfield A. If the record contains any dashes or spaces, you will want to remove them. So in this example, there are a few dashes on the item, so we are going to remove those and enter it as just a single. Basically, it looks like just like a single digit. The other number that we have on our item is a UPC, or Universal Product Code. This item number will be entered into a 024 field, or also the other standard identifier. This is used when a standard number or code is published on an item that cannot be accommodated in a field like the 020. Since we are using a UPC, we are going to enter a 1 in the first indicator. The second indicator is going to be a 0 because the difference indicator helps us determine if the barcode on the item matches the number that is below it. So when I scanned this actual barcode, it matched this number. So I am putting a 0 in the second indicator for no difference. And then we're going to use a subfield A for that UPC number. And it's similar to the 020. It just is entered into what looks like just a big single digit or full number. The 028, this is for the publisher or distributor number. This is a formatted number used for musical sound recordings, non-musical sound recordings, so audiobooks, other sound recordings, notated music, and video recordings. So the first indicators are for the type of number. Since this is a video recording, we are going to use a 4 for video recording publisher number. And in the second indicator, we are going to use a 2 for note no access point. And then in the subfield A is where we actually enter that number. And then we would also enter a B for the source. So in the subfields, we use A and B, and then we enter it as such. And for punctuation regarding these 3 fields, they do not end in terminal periods. So you will not enter punctuation in the 020s, 024s, or the 028s. 041, the language code. This is really important when we are dealing with audio-related material. These 041, these are codes for the languages associated with a resource. When the fixed field element, the language fixed field, is insufficient it doesn't tell us all of the language information for an item. So the first indicator is for translations. Is the item a translation or does it include translations? Is it not a translation or doesn't include? The second indicator is usually it's either a 7, which we commonly refer to it for the source specified in a subfield 2. And then we have the different subfields for to help relay what language is used for different types of like accessibility in the item. So in for 041s, we use this when the item contains more than one language, and one could be sign language. The item is or includes a translation. The language of, excuse me, excuse me, sorry. The language of the summaries, abstracts, or accompanying material differs from the language of the main item, or the language of the table of contents differs from the language of the main item. It's important to make sure that the 041 corresponds with the 546 field and some of the 34X fields if they are present. So in our example, we are using a first indicator of 1. We are leaving the second indicator blank, and the subfields we are going to use are the A, H, and P based on the information we got from the item. And remember, the A is for what the text or the soundtrack is in. H is what the original language is. So in this item, it is English. And then we have P for captions. So it's going to look like this. Again, no punctuation. So each one. And I read that the H, actually, it comes after, I believe it said, the subfield A's. So I think a lot of times we'll see that at the end, or it doesn't look like it's in like alphabetical order, like the subfield codes, but the subfield H actually falls after the subfield A. And I can clarify that later. I should have written that down, but the 082, which is required, or one of the classification numbers is required in in one of our MARC records. So a 050 for a Library of Congress classification, no, that's a different thing. So a 082 for Dewey Decimal, or, oh my gosh, yes, 050 for Library of Congress, 082 for Dewey Decimal. We need at least one of those in our MARC records to meet minimum standards. Most of the time, you will see a 082 in video recordings. If you do see a 050, even though your library may not use that classification system, don't remove that tag. It's important to keep the information in the record. So in this record, we are using a 082 for the Dewey Decimal classification system. First indicator is for the type of edition. So what edition are we taking the number from? The source of classification number is in the second indicator, and then our subfields for this classification number. In ours, we are using a first indicator of 0 because we are taking the number from the full edition. The second indicator is going to be a 4 because the number was assigned by an agency other than the Library of Congress. And then we are going to use the subfields A and 2 to help enter the Dewey information. And the number is entered as it appears on the item, if it is on the item. For this example, I actually took this from the original record in Evergreen. So this is the Dewey number. Make sure you include that /, and then for the source, for the edition number, we got this number from the 22nd full edition. 130, or the main entry for uniform titles, these are used, the uniform title is used as a main entry in a bib record. This is used when a work is entered directly under a title and the work has appeared under varying titles, necessitating that a particular title be chosen to represent the work. So because we know this movie based on the information provided. And if you've seen it, we know it's based off of the board game Clue. So we have two different types of titles for Clue. And so it's useful for a 130, a uniform title, to help distinguish between those like names. So in our example, we are using a first indicator of 0. We are going to leave the second indicator blank, and we are just going to use a subfield A. And in what I retrieved from the Library of Congress Authority file is this clue with motion picture in parentheses. Question: if you are doing original cataloging on an item, where is the best place to find the correct Dewey number? That is a very good question. If you cannot find another record online anywhere, from like another catalog, I think you could, because not everyone has access to WebDewey, which would be helpful. For this one, that is, okay, we're going to just do this really quick. Okay. Comment library thing has Dewey numbers. It doesn't hurt to double check them though for accuracy. So we are going to go to classification. Let's see what I have here. Okay. OCLC has a manual for Dewey Decimal, so this might be of use. It does take a moment to figure out how to read it, at least the beginning parts, but we know 791 is commonly used for entertainment. So this is going to be 800, 782. We see here at the top. Okay, so 791.43 is motion pictures and television. You could just go with that. And then just read what the description is for those to kind of make sure that you are using the correct Dewey number. 245 is the title statement. This is also where we enter statements of responsibility and of the item. The title statement consists of the title proper and may also contain the remainder of title, other title information, remainder of the title page description, and again, the statements of responsibility if there are multiple, or just statement. The title proper does include the short title and alternative title. It can also include numerical designation of a part or section and the name of a part or section, which is more commonly found in, more frequently found in like manga. So if there is a 1XX entry, whether it's a 100 or 130, use a first indicator of 1. If not, just enter a 0. Remember, not all like video recordings will need or have a uniform title. So just make sure that if there is one, we will enter a 1. If there isn't, a 0. We do want to use sentence case when transcribing the title statement. The title proper should be taken from the chief or preferred source of information. With video recordings like video discs, Blu-ray, things like that, the chief source or the preferred source is usually the film itself, but we know not everyone has time or access to a DVD player, so it's a lot of times you are unable to actually like play the recording to get that specific information. So if you need to, you are able to take the title from the disc, from the container. So don't feel like you absolutely have to. It is absolutely preferred, but again, not everyone has the time or ability to access the film itself. So we're going to use the subfields A, B, and C. Now, if you look at the record that's already in the catalog, in our catalog, you will see that they did not put a subtitle of the movie. Would be correct if they took it from the film itself. When you play the movie, it only shows the word clue. It doesn't have the movie. However, and today, I'm actually just taking the title from the disc, which has Clue and then the movie in a little magnifying glass. So I am taking that as a subtitle. So I entered that in a subfield B. With punctuation in a subfield A, that it precedes a subfield B, we enter a space colon space, and then a subfield C is preceded by a space / space. The subfield C is where we enter the statement of responsibility. If you look on the back of the case on one of the previous pictures, you will see that it gives us a really good statement at the beginning of the starting credits. So we have the production information. We can enter the important information like who it was written by, produced, especially who our film was directed by. And I think I misspelled that because that should be, oh no, that was right. Okay. Addition statement. This is information relating to the addition of a work as determined by applicable cataloging rules. The indicators are undefined, so we will leave those blank. And normally you just see a subfield A for the addition statement. They usually consist of numeric or alphabetic characters. If an addition statement appears in more than one language, you only want to enter the first addition statement in the subfield A. You transcribe the addition statement as it appears on the source if available. If it is not on the source, you want to enter the statement in brackets. And the reason I entered the addition statement with widescreen version, because it helps differentiate between other releases. Earlier DVD releases usually had a full screen version and a widescreen version. So those were helpful for library staff and patrons when determining if they wanted which version they wanted, because there's a difference between the widescreen and full screen versions. Publication information is entered into a 264 tag. This is the statement relating to the publication, distribution, issue, release, or production of a work. This is very similar to what was entered into a 260 field when we followed the AACR2 cataloging rules. With RDA, we use a 264 in lieu of the 260. Most of the time you will see in the first indicator blank for most items. Sometimes when things are republished, you might see a 3. For this item, we are leaving blank because it is not applicable or no information provided. Second indicator is important because it tells us what the function of the entity listed is. And then the subfields we want to enter information about the place of publication, the name of publisher, producer, etc., and then the date of publication. To transcribe it, I forgot to update this part. Let's see. So for the 264, the publication information, we want to transcribe it at what is on the item. Usually with videos, they are on the back, or if you have the ability to watch the actual starting credits for an item. I hope I actually put okay, good. So if you look on the back of the item, at the bottom, we have a information about Paramount Pictures, who is the producer and distributor for this item. In the bottom right, we have a location. So I took that and entered that into the subfield A. For the subfield B, I entered what the name of the producer, which is Paramount Pictures. And then in the subfield C, I entered the assumed publication date. If you look at the item on one of the pictures, there is no actual production date. So the copyright is assumed and entered into the 264 with a second indicator of 1 in brackets. When we look at the copyright notice, if we are using brackets, then we need to enter a second 264 field with a second indicator of 4 for the copyright. And so we are entering, I did it again. We are entering that copyright number again in the 264 second indicator of 4. Now you might also see that there is a 1985 on the item, which is when the film itself was produced. What I took from the information is that when there would be like 2 copyright dates, then you want to take the most recent one. So that is why I entered a copyright date of 2000. The for punctuation, the 264 second indicator of 4, the subfield C does not end with a terminal period, so this is going to remain open. The 264 second indicator of 1, or even the 2s and 3s, a subfield C is preceded by a comma, and a subfield B is preceded by a space colon. Now, if your subfield C in a second indicator of 1 to 64 has a bracket, you do not need to enter a terminal period. However, if it was just the date, then you would enter a period, a terminal period. Next, since we just talked about dates, production, and copyright dates, let's look at the fixed fields. This is for the DTST, the type of dates, and the date 1 and date 2 fixed fields. Since we have 2 dates, even though they are the same, we are using brackets in that first subfield C. We are going to use a T in the DTST, the dates type fixed field for publication and copyright date. The publication date is going to go into the date 1 field, and then the date 2 field is where you enter the copyright. Now, it doesn't really matter in this one because they are the same number, but publication will go in date 1, copyright will go in date 2. The CTRY, the country fixed field, this is the state or country of publication, production, or execution. It must be 2 to 3 characters depending on the location. For the United States, the first 2 characters represent the state, and the third character represents the country. There is a link to see the MARC code list for countries if you need assistance figuring out what to enter for material that was not published, published in the US as well, because if you need a reminder of what that code will be. The 300 field is the physical description. It's used to describe the physicality of the item, the extent of the material, the size, and any accompanying material. The 300 tag should always match your item in hand with limited exceptions, and you may allow for varying styles of entry. So like pages versus a P, and things like that. Indicators are undefined, so you should see those blank. And then the subfields that you usually see are the extent, other physical details, dimensions, and accompanying material, if any. For our item, I did it again. I did a lot of copy and pasting for the slides. We are going to use subfields A, B, and C. Those indicators are blank. So we have a single video disc, and that is entered in the subfield A. In parentheses is where we enter the time of the film. We do not count accompaniment, like special features, if there are any, like documentaries or things like that. We only enter the time for the length of the film itself in parentheses. And I entered it as it appeared on the item, which is 96 MIN period. And then I entered a space colon that precedes a subfield B. The subfield B is where we enter more information. So for video recordings, this is where we enter the terms sound and color, because this movie is multicolored. If it were black and white, we would enter black and white, or you might also see B and W. Preceding the subfield C is a space semicolon space, and then in the subfield C is the dimensions. Information I have found online differs from our practice. So in Evergreen, Indiana, for our practice, we enter the dimensions in inches. So for video discs, Blu-ray, DVD, you will see a 4 3/4 inches. Next, the fixed field, since we entered that information in the 300 field, the time, this is the running time for video recordings. We use 3 digits in minute form. Again, it does not include supplemental features. So since our item was 96 minutes, we are going to add a 0 at the beginning and then enter 96. If it exceeds 3 characters. So if you are cataloging a David Attenborough documentary about nature, you will most likely enter 3 zeros because it'll exceed 999 minutes, most likely. The 33X and 34X, while we aren't covering them specifically, I do want to point out what is available in the record, as well as some that I adjusted and added. So the template already has most of these entered, but because this is an older title, we have to adjust or remove some of the headings or the tags. So in this example, I removed the 341 for visual audio descriptions, which is usually used for described video. That is not available on this item. The only thing that is mentioned are closed captioning. So we would remove this 341. And then I added a 344 for mono, because if we look at the language information, the soundtracks are in English mono and French mono. 380, form of work. This is a class or genre to which a work belongs. It may be used to differentiate a work from another work with the same title. So this will be useful if we are trying to differentiate this from the board game Clue. Indicators are undefined, and so we will use a subfield A for form of work, and or a subfield 2 if the source of term. It's recommended by OLAC to take terms from a controlled vocabulary, like the Library of Congress genre form terms, thesaurus. The subfield A can be repeated when the terms used are from a shared thesaurus. However, if they are from separate thesauri, then you want to use separate 380 fields for each term. So for this one, I used motion pictures, film adaptations, and then since both of these are from the genre form term thesaurus, I added that in a code in a subfield 2. Question: where can you find that information if you don't have RDA Toolkit? The best place, once you know that information is there, or those tags to check, the best place is probably going to be we have the RDA content type terms. The other, where is it? I think reference value. So this is a link to the RDA value vocabularies. You see in these examples that there are like RDA TR, RDA RM. These are these tell you which vocabulary list it is taken from. So let's look at widescreen right here in this 345, RDA AR. So if we go to the RDA registry, RDA AR, the aspect ratio, if we click on that, this will tell us the terms that are available to us. This is probably for me the best way to find out what controlled vocabulary is available to me for that particular tag. Also, I want to mention if you want to separate the three, see we have multiple 344s. If they are from different thesauri, it's recommended to put them in, they need to be in separate like 344s. So since these are from different field or different vocabularies, and we are using different subfields, which mean different things, then we want to enter them into their own separate 344. So the best bet is to the RDA registry for vocabularies. Also, remember, a lot of this is pre-entered in the record or in the template. So a lot of times you won't have to immediately change everything. But if you notice that your item in hand does not have a specific thing, then you would want to remove that field. Okay, great. I forgot to finish this slide. So the 5XX, the notes field, this includes a lot of information about information that you may have found in like the 3XX fields, along with other data. I did some digging because before we went to RDA, there was an order of notes. There was a specific order of entering the 5XX fields. While RDA does not have that order anymore, it's still recommended to use the order of notes. It's not, I wouldn't say it's super important or super required, but the reason they do the order of notes is to put together like tags. So so that is why they seem out of order. So the order of the tags that I have right now are based on that order that I found. So 546, the language note, we have 15 minutes, so I might talk a little faster, which shouldn't be too much of a trouble. 546 is the language note. Remember, this should correspond with information in the language fix field and or the 041 field. We do want to transcribe the 546. We want to list the language tracks available on the item. Again, while we do allow taking information from the container, sometimes, and if you've noticed, based on the listserv, the list may differ on the container than what is actually available on the item if you run the DVD in a DVD player on your computer. So it's important to make sure that that is accurate, because that can make a patron decide whether or not they want to check that specific item out. If the language information listed on the container does not match the information available, if you play the disc itself, you want to use a 500 field to note the inaccuracies. So in this example, I just entered, and it's free text. There's no controlled vocabulary for the 546. So I just entered language tracks in English and French with optional subtitles in English. 588 is the source of description note. Now, this is a little different than what we are probably used to. This is a recommendation from the online audiovisual catalogers, so it's not required. But normally in our records, we see a 500 field to describe where we got the title statement, if it was not taken directly from the title screen of the film. But OLOC recommends using the 588 field instead of a 500. So we use the first indicator of 0, which is for the source, second is undefined, and then the subfield A. So in this 588 field, I entered title from disc label because that is where I got it. 511, the participant or performer note. This is just information about the performers in the item. If we are dealing with like a video recording, we will use a 1 for cast. For audiobooks, you will normally see that as blank. But for movies, TV shows, things like that, we will have a 1 for cast. And then I entered the information taken from the case. And then also a couple names aren't on there that were not on the case, but I included because people might be interested in searching for them. 508 is the creation or production credit notes. So kind of similar to the 511 where it listed the cast. This is where we list the like producers, directors, if they were not listed in the 245 statement of responsibility, other important people who, what's the word? Who were important to the creation and production of the work. It is repeatable. For this one, we just entered the information that was some of the information that was provided on the item. Now you don't need to repeat the names that were in the 245 statement of responsibility. So if they are listed in the statement of responsibility in that subfield C, you do not have to include them in the 508. 500 note for based on publication history notes. We know that this item is based on the board game clue. It also says it in that on the item itself. So I included the based upon the Parker Brothers board game clue. And then publication history notes, we know it was originally released as a motion picture in 1985. 538 system detail notes. So this will kind of correspond with some of those like 3, 4 X fields. But this is all just entered into a single subfield A and does match those 3, 4. So DVD and TSC region 1. So the item is playable only in those areas that are considered region 1, widescreen information, and Dolby Digital for the sound. Special features notes. This is a note that provides general information for the item in hand. There aren't really special features, what we consider special features for video recordings on this. So I just took what we have, that special features image or from the back of the cover, and because it just included widescreen language information. We don't normally include information like interactive menus. It isn't really a special feature, or scene selection or trailers. So I just added the special features, 3 different surprise endings. Target audience note in the 521. This is to identify the specific audience or intellectual level for which the content is considered appropriate. For movies, we enter an 8 in the first indicator for no display constant generated. Second indicator is undefined, and then we use a subfield A to enter the rating information. You might see just the actual rating itself. You might also see sometimes a semicolon and then the reason that is listed on the item as to why it is a PG. The item itself does not have that information, so I just entered MPAA rating PG. Next, that fixed field for audience. We enter for this item, we want to enter a G. This is used for movies rated G, PG, and PG-13. However, since this is PG, if it was specifically aimed at children, we would use a J. Since this is not aimed at children, we would just enter that G for general audience. We already did that. Summary is entered into the 520. We have blank indicators and enter the information in a subfield A. This I just took from you can take it from the item itself, from an external website. If you use an external website, then you want to enter it into quotations and describe where you got it. The 6XX for the subject access fields, these are established subject headings that describe what the item is or what the item is about. In this instance, we used a 650 for topical terms and a 655 for genre form terms. For the 650, we have the first indicator is usually no information provided. Second indicator tells us what thesaurus we got that term from. And then for the subfields, in this instance, we used a subfield A, which is where we enter the main term portion of the topical term, and then a form subdivision in a subfield V. In the 655, we usually have a first indicator blank for basic, and then if the term is not taken from the Library of Congress subject heading, and there's others, or the children's, we will use a 7 in the second indicator for source specified in the subfield 2. So for this item, I used these subject headings, and I used the subdivision drama because we are dealing with a video recording. Normally for books, you would see fiction, but for video recordings, you will see drama in a subfield V. And then I included these genre form headings. These 7XX are the added entries. These provide access points for names or titles that have a relationship to the source that are not listed in a 1XX field. So in this, we are using 700 for personal name and 710 for corporate. For 700, we use a first indicator to tell us the type of personal name. Second indicator is the type of added entry, which is usually blank. And then we have the different subfields. And of course, that may change based if you are using, like if you look between the 700 and the 710, whereas the subfields for the corporate name, the A is for corporate name, B is the subordinate unit and things like that. And the first indicator is for jurisdiction, name of direct order, or inverted name. So these are what I entered for the 700 and 710. You are not required to enter all of the names that you entered into the 511 and 508s into the 700 fields. And I usually just put like the director, I usually put the director at the top, and then like screenwriter, producer, and then I enter the actors. And if you remember from the refresher when Sandra was talking about RDA, how using the relator terms on like these 700s, what that does is, am I in the right? Yes. It's good to use relator terms when possible because it replaces those actor or authors that would normally appear here with the relator term that you use in that subfield E. So if you can, use a relator term for those 7XX fields. Next fixed field, or the last one that we did not get to yet, was the tech, or the technique used to create motion for video recordings. This is a live action, so primarily live action, so I'm going to enter an L for in that tech fixed field. Last thing we want to look at is the physical description. Video recordings require a 007 field, which helps with the physical description of the item. It can help with filters that might be used in our catalog. What's great is we have that physical description wizard, and the templates themselves have this in them already. So you might need to change, for example, I changed the configuration of playback was on surround or stereo. I changed that to an M. Oh, you can see here it was originally a Q, but I changed it to an M for monaural. Monaural, that word. I changed it for that. So thankfully that is already in there, but this is just a little breakdown of what the physical characteristics wizard will help you work through. Are there any questions? Oh, I saw a question before that. I have several silent films. Any suggestions on what they should include? What do you mean, like in like the 3XX field? Well, one to look at is, what is that movie, The Artist? Let's look at that, what they have in that. Here we go. The Artist, that silent movie that came out several years ago. Okay, let's see what they did here. I'll see. Obviously, I cannot promise. Okay, let's see. Well, they have sound. I haven't seen The Artist, so I cannot say if there's like a music track. But let's see. Well, it's saying there's English dialogue with optional Spanish. There are sounds in one spoken line. Okay. I would think you would enter something if it was like, is that because of the music? Most likely. That's a book. Comment. I think the records for these kinds of DVDs will still have sound in the 300 because there's usually a music soundtrack. Feel like I've seen 5XXs that say it's a silent movie with accompanying soundtrack. That sounds okay. So if we go down here, yeah, silent film with English intertitles and music score. Okay. Well, I've passed the 11 o'clock mark, so we can, if you still have questions, I can stick around for a few. But thank you everyone for hanging out with me today. I hope this was helpful. Again, please contact me if you have questions, comments, concerns about this webinar. But thank you, everyone. I hope just stay warm and have a good rest of your day. Thank you, Jennifer. Let's see what Google has to say about this. Okay, this is just a... Jennifer, this might be... Now, this isn't official, but this is a proposal that was at the Library of Congress. I'm putting the link into the chat. If you would like to read a little more. let's see, proposal for an I. So if we, what was that? 041. Okay. Yes, there is a subfield I for the 041 for language code of intertitles. Let's see if they have any. Let's see. Well, this has a J. What's language code of subtitles? That's not the same. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's subfield I. Oh, they were previously coded in J. Now they're in that I. This is a 007 field. The F for the 007 for sound on medium or separate. A sound on medium. Do not code F for silent films. That's same sound. Do not code F for silent films. Okay. So there's information there. So you might also, if you're still here, Jennifer, find information in the OLAC. Silent films commonly contain intertitles. Pieces of text are inserted into or between scenes. Code language of intertitles in MARC 041 subfield I, and record a free text note in MARC field 546. See where else they. Okay, that's for streaming. No, this is video games. Or if any music or sound has been added, record the sound content as sound. Add a note to explain or clarify the details of the sound content if necessary. Last one. Okay. I think I have found what I can for silent films. So if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will see you guys later.